What would you do if you discovered that the person who vowed to love you forever was secretly planning to replace you with someone younger, more glamorous, and more aligned with their public image? Have you ever felt like you weren't good enough, like someone was ashamed of you? Today's story might resonate deeply with those feelings. "Did you ever love us?" Eliza Morgan asked quietly, turning the computer monitor toward her husband of 18 years. Her voice trembled slightly, but her eyes remained steady, fixed on the man she thought she knew. Maxwell Morgan's expression shifted from confusion to recognition, then settled into something worse: relief. "I was going to tell you after the girls' graduation." "How considerate," Eliza whispered, her voice hollow. "Who is she?" "Vanessa Winters. My new chief marketing officer." "And our daughters? Were you planning to discard them too?" Maxwell's jaw tightened. "They're nearly adults, Eliza. They'll understand that people grow apart." "No," Eliza stood, finding strength in her fury. "They'll understand that their father was ashamed of his ordinary family, that we weren't glamorous enough for the great Maxwell Morgan." This is the story of Maxwell Morgan, a wealthy CEO who was so consumed by his public image that he was willing to discard his wife of 18 years and his twin daughters for a younger, more suitable partner. But what happens when the people you discard refuse to remain in the shadows? What happens when they rise from the ashes stronger than before? Stay with me to discover how one woman's transformation changed everything. If you enjoy stories about transformation and unexpected twists of fate, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Mr. Wellington Story Hour. I bring you compelling true stories with powerful life lessons every week. The morning Eliza Morgan discovered her husband's betrayal, rain pelted against the windows of their Beacon Hill mansion like tiny accusations. She stood motionless in his study, a forgotten cup of tea growing cold in her trembling hands, staring at the email that had accidentally synced to their shared home computer. "I've made arrangements for the penthouse. Once the divorce is finalized, we can finally stop hiding. 2 more months, my love. V." 18 years of marriage crystallized into a single devastating moment of clarity. Eliza sank into Maxwell's leather chair, her mind racing to their twin daughters, Lily and Rose, currently in their final semester of high school. How would this shatter their world? The girls who had their father's piercing gray eyes and analytical mind, but their mother's compassion. She thought back to when she and Maxwell had first met, both graduate students at MIT. She studying art history, he pursuing his MBA. Everyone had been surprised when the ambitious, driven Maxwell had fallen for the quiet, thoughtful Eliza. But back then, he'd loved her gentle spirit, her different perspective on the world. When had that changed? When had she become an embarrassment rather than a balance to his intensity? The front door slammed, followed by Maxwell's confident footsteps in the hallway. Eliza didn't turn when he entered the study. "You're home early," he remarked, loosening his tie. "Did you ever love us?" Eliza asked quietly, turning the monitor toward him. Maxwell's expression shifted from confusion to recognition, then settled into something worse: relief. "I was going to tell you after the girls' graduation." "How considerate," Eliza whispered, her voice hollow. "Who is she?" "Vanessa Winters, my new chief marketing officer." Of course, the brilliant, childless executive 20 years his junior, the woman who attended every industry gala on his arm while Eliza stayed home with their daughters or volunteered at the community arts center she'd founded. "And our daughters? Were you planning to discard them too?" Maxwell's jaw tightened. "They're nearly adults, Eliza. They'll understand that people grow apart." "No," Eliza stood, finding strength in her fury. "They'll understand that their father was ashamed of his ordinary family, that we weren't glamorous enough for the great Maxwell Morgan." "That's not fair." "Isn't it? When was the last time you brought us to a company event? When did you stop posting family photos? When did we become your dirty little secret?" Maxwell's silence was damning. "Get out," Eliza said, her voice surprisingly steady. "I'll have my lawyer contact yours." Maxwell opened his mouth as if to argue, then closed it. He straightened his tie, a gesture so familiar it made Eliza's heart ache despite everything. "I'll stay at a hotel tonight. We can discuss logistics tomorrow." "There's nothing to discuss. Just go." After he left, Eliza remained in his study, watching the rain streak down the windows, mirroring the tears on her face. The house felt suddenly vast and empty, though nothing had physically changed. How would she tell the girls? How could she explain that their father had decided they weren't worth keeping? The sound of laughter from the front hall startled her from her thoughts. Lily and Rose were home from their after-school activities. Eliza quickly wiped her eyes and tried to compose herself, but when the twins appeared in the doorway, their smiles faded immediately. "Mom? What's wrong?" Rose asked, always the more perceptive of the two. Eliza looked at her beautiful daughters, so full of promise and goodness, and couldn't bring herself to shatter their world. Not yet. "Just a headache," she lied. "How was your day?" "Where's Dad?" Lily asked, glancing around. "His car's not in the driveway." "He had to go back to the office," Eliza said, the first of what she feared would be many lies to protect them. Something about the Westlake acquisition. The twins exchanged a look that told Eliza they didn't quite believe her, but they didn't press. Instead, they surrounded her in a group hug that nearly broke her resolve. "We're going to make dinner tonight," Rose announced. "You rest." As they left for the kitchen, chattering about their day, Eliza felt a strange calm settle over her. She would protect them as long as she could, but soon they would all have to face the new reality of their lives. A reality without Maxwell Morgan. That night, after the girls had gone to bed, Eliza sat alone in the living room, surrounded by family photos that now felt like artifacts from a museum of lies. She picked up one from their last vacation together 2 years ago. A sailing trip to Martha's Vineyard. Maxwell looked distracted even then, checking his phone while the rest of them smiled for the camera. Had it already been happening? Had Vanessa Winters already been in the picture? Her phone buzzed with a text from Maxwell. "I'll come by tomorrow at 10 to collect some things. We need to talk about how to tell the girls." Eliza didn't respond. Instead, she opened her laptop and began researching divorce attorneys. If Maxwell wanted a war, she would give him one. Not for money, she had never cared about his wealth, but for her daughter's security and emotional well-being. They deserved better than to be discarded for not fitting their father's image of success. The next morning, Eliza woke early after a restless night. She made coffee and sat at the kitchen island, making notes about what she would say to Maxwell. The girls had already left for school, giving her a few hours to prepare. At precisely 10 a.m., the doorbell rang. Maxwell had never used the doorbell before. It was a small thing, but it underscored how quickly he had transformed from husband to stranger. She opened the door to find him looking immaculate in a tailored suit, not a hair out of place, as if he hadn't just destroyed 18 years of marriage. "Eliza," he nodded formally. "May I come in?" She stepped aside wordlessly, leading him to the kitchen where her notes and coffee waited. "I've spoken with my lawyer," Maxwell began without preamble. "I'm prepared to be generous. The house, of course, and substantial support for you and the girls." "How magnanimous of you," Eliza replied, her voice flat. "To pay us off for the inconvenience of existing." Maxwell sighed. "I didn't want it to be like this. I hoped we could be civil." "Civil?" Eliza laughed, a harsh sound that surprised even her. "You've been planning to leave us for months, Maxwell. While living in this house, while sitting across from me at dinner, while attending the girls' school events. How is that civil?" "People fall out of love, Eliza. It happens. People don't fall out of love with their children." Maxwell had the decency to look uncomfortable. "I haven't fallen out of love with Lily and Rose. They'll always be my daughters. Just not daughters you want to be seen with in public, not daughters who fit with your new image. That's unfair." "Is it? When was the last time you brought them to Pinnacle? When was the last time you posted about their achievements on your social media? You used to be so proud of them." Maxwell looked away. "They're still important to me. Just not as important as Vanessa Winters and your public image." Eliza pushed a folder across the counter. "These are the names of 3 divorce attorneys. I'll be contacting the first one today. You can tell your lawyer to expect a call." Maxwell took the folder, his expression hardening. "I was hoping we could keep this amicable." "So was I, for 18 years. He nodded stiffly and stood. "I'll have my assistant arrange to collect my things when you and the girls aren't home, to make it easier." "How thoughtful," Eliza said, the sarcasm thick in her voice. "One more thing, Maxwell. I'll be telling the girls tonight." I won't let them hear about their father's new life from someone else. Something like guilt flashed across Maxwell's face. I should be there for that conversation. You forfeited that right when you decided we weren't good enough for you anymore. After he left, Eliza sat motionless at the kitchen counter, staring at her cold coffee. The conversation had gone exactly as she'd expected, and yet the finality of it still felt like a physical blow. 18 years, reduced to a brief businesslike exchange about lawyers and possessions. That evening, when Lily and Rose returned from school, Eliza gathered them in the living room. The same room where they had opened Christmas presents together, where they had built blanket forts during thunderstorms when they were little, where Maxwell had once read them bedtime stories. "Girls, I need to tell you something, and it's going to be difficult to hear," Eliza began, her heart pounding. The twins exchanged worried glances. "Is it about Dad?" Lily asked. "He hasn't been home in 2 days." Eliza nodded, taking a deep breath. "Your father and I are getting a divorce." The silence that followed was deafening. Rose was the first to speak, her voice small. "Why?" "He's met someone else," Eliza said simply. No matter how much she wanted to protect them, she wouldn't lie. "He's been seeing her for some time." "Who is she?" Lily demanded, anger flashing in her eyes, so like her father's. "His new chief marketing officer, Vanessa Winters." Recognition dawned on Rose's face. The woman from the company holiday party, the one who kept touching his arm and laughing too loud? Eliza hadn't attended that party. Another event where Maxwell had gone alone, claiming it was just business? "I don't know. I've never met her." "I have," Rose said quietly. "She acted like we were invisible when Dad introduced us, like we were an inconvenience." Lily stood abruptly, pacing the room. "I can't believe he would do this to us, to you." "I'm so sorry, girls," Eliza said, her voice breaking. "I never wanted this for you." Rose moved to sit beside her mother, taking her hand. "It's not your fault, Mom." "What's going to happen now?" Lily asked, still pacing. "Where will we live? What about college?" "We'll stay in the house," Eliza assured them. "Your father has agreed to that much, and your college funds are secure. Nothing will change about your futures." "Everything has already changed," Lily said bitterly. "Our father is a liar and a cheat." "Lily," Eliza began, but her daughter cut her off. "No, Mom, don't defend him. He doesn't deserve it." The three of them sat together as the evening light faded, talking, crying, and occasionally even laughing as they remembered happier times. By unspoken agreement, they ordered pizza and ate it in the living room, breaking Eliza's long-standing "no food on the couch" rule. As they were cleaning up, Rose asked the question Eliza had been dreading. "Are you going to be okay, Mom?" Eliza looked at her daughters, these remarkable young women she and Maxwell had raised, and felt a surge of determination. "Yes," she said firmly. "We all are. This isn't the end of our story, and it's just a difficult chapter." Later that night, after the girls had gone to bed, Eliza sat alone in the garden, wrapped in a cardigan against the spring chill. The rain had stopped, leaving the air fresh and clean. She thought about Maxwell, about the life they'd built together, and about the future that now stretched before her, uncharted and uncertain. For 18 years, she had been Maxwell Morgan's wife. Her identity had been so entwined with his that she wasn't sure who she was without him. The community arts center she'd founded was her only real accomplishment outside of raising their daughters. It was small, underfunded, but it brought art to children who might otherwise never experience it. As she sat there, watching the moonlight silver the wet garden, an idea began to form. A small spark at first, but growing brighter with each passing moment. What if she expanded the arts center? What if she created something larger, more impactful? Something that could help others who were also starting over? For the first time since discovering Maxwell's betrayal, Eliza felt a flicker of excitement. She had always supported his dreams, stood in his shadow while he built pinnacle innovations. Perhaps now, it was time to step into the light and build something of her own. 3 months later, Maxwell stood beside Vanessa in their sleek downtown penthouse, hosting Pinnacle's executive team for dinner. The divorce had been finalized with brutal efficiency, Maxwell's specialty. Eliza had asked for surprisingly little, just the house and financial support for the girls' education. The penthouse was everything their family home was not: minimalist, ultra-modern, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Boston's skyline. It was a space designed to impress rather than comfort, much like the woman who had helped decorate it. Vanessa moved through the room with practiced grace, champagne flute in hand, laughing at the right moments, touching Maxwell's arm possessively whenever another woman approached. She was undeniably beautiful, with her sleek dark hair and designer dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. To Pinnacle's future, Maxwell raised his glass, his other arm around Vanessa's waist. And to new beginnings. As glasses clinked, his phone buzzed with a text from Rose. "Dad, Lily got into MIT early decision. Thought you'd want to know." Maxwell smiled briefly, typing a quick congratulatory response before silencing his phone. His daughters were brilliant. They'd be fine. They had inherited his resilience and ambition. This transition was for the best. They'd understand someday. "Everything okay?" Vanessa murmured, noticing his distraction. "Fine. Just Lily got into MIT." "That's nice," Vanessa said, already turning back to their guests. "Harrison was just telling me about their new yacht. We should consider something similar for corporate retreats." Maxwell nodded, allowing himself to be pulled into a conversation about luxury vessels and corporate image. This was his world now: sleek, efficient, impressive. No messy emotions, no complicated family dynamics. Just success and the pursuit of more. Later that night, as Vanessa slept beside him, Maxwell scrolled through his social media. Pinnacle's stock had reached an all-time high. His recent profile in Forbes had generated significant buzz. Everything was proceeding according to plan. Then he saw it, a post from an old colleague. "Congratulations to Eliza Morgan on the launch of Phoenix Foundation, transforming lives through arts education for underprivileged youth. Proud to support this visionary initiative." Attached was a photo of Eliza, radiant in a simple blue dress, cutting a ribbon before a converted warehouse. Beside her stood their daughters, tall and poised, looking at their mother with unmistakable pride. Maxwell frowned. Eliza had never mentioned launching a foundation. She'd always been content managing their household and her small community arts center. This was unexpected. He clicked through to the Phoenix Foundation's newly launched website. The mission statement caught his attention. "Rising from ashes to create beauty and opportunity. Everyone deserves a second act." Something uncomfortable twisted in Maxwell's chest. He closed the browser and turned away from the glow of his phone, telling himself the strange feeling wasn't regret. The next morning, over breakfast, Maxwell mentioned the foundation casually to Vanessa. "Did you see Eliza's launch some kind of arts foundation?" Vanessa barely looked up from her tablet. "Oh yes, I heard something about that. Keeping herself busy, I suppose." "Pass the coffee?" Maxwell poured her a cup, studying her profile. "It seems to be gaining some attention." "Well, divorcees need hobbies," Vanessa said dismissively. "Speaking of attention, don't forget we have the Tech Industry Awards tonight. Your new tux is being delivered this afternoon." "I have a quarterly review meeting that might run late." Vanessa's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose slightly. "This is important, Maxwell. All the major players will be there. It's our first major industry event as a couple." Maxwell nodded, recognizing the subtle warning in her tone. Vanessa had expectations about their public appearances, about the image they presented together. It was one of the things that had initially attracted him to her, her understanding of the importance of perception in their world. "I'll make it work," he promised, already mentally rearranging his schedule. As he drove to the office, Maxwell found himself thinking about Eliza's foundation. The phoenix, rising from ashes. The symbolism wasn't exactly subtle. Was this her way of sending him a message? Of proving she could succeed without him? He pushed the thought away as he pulled into his reserved parking space at Pinnacle's headquarters. He had more important things to focus on. The Westlake acquisition was entering a critical phase, and he needed to be fully present for the negotiations. The day passed in a blur of meetings and conference calls. Maxwell was in his element, directing his team with the precision and focus that had made him successful. This was what he was good at: strategy, negotiation, seeing 10 steps ahead of everyone else. At 6:30 p.m., his assistant knocked on his office door. Your tuxedo has been delivered to the penthouse, sir, and Ms. Winters called to remind you that the car will be picking you up at 7:15. Maxwell glanced at his watch. He'd have to skip the last meeting. Thank you, Jennifer. Please reschedule the Westlake team for tomorrow morning. Of course, sir. Jennifer hesitated. Also, your daughter Rose called. She said it wasn't urgent, but asked if you could call her back when you have a moment. Maxwell nodded, already gathering his things. I'll call her tomorrow. Anything else? No, sir. Have a good evening. The award ceremony was exactly what Maxwell had expected, ostentatious, self-congratulatory, and essential for networking. He and Vanessa made a striking couple, drawing admiring glances as they moved through the crowd. She was the perfect companion for these events, knowledgeable enough about the industry to engage in meaningful conversation, charming enough to win over even the most reserved executives. Morgan, congratulations on the Forbes piece, called Harrison Wells, one of Pinnacle's board members. You and Vanessa looked fantastic in those photos. Maxwell shook the man's hand, smiling. Thank you, Harrison. Vanessa deserves the credit for the visual appeal. Vanessa laughed, the sound practiced and musical. Maxwell's being modest. The article was all about his visionary leadership. Speaking of vision, Harrison said, lowering his voice slightly, how's the Westlake acquisition progressing? My sources tell me they're entertaining other offers. Maxwell's smile didn't falter, though this was news to him. All proceeding according to plan. We're in the final stages of negotiation. Glad to hear it. Would hate to lose that one to the competition. Harrison clapped him on the shoulder before moving on to greet another guest. Is that true? Vanessa murmured once they were alone. About other offers? First I've heard of it, Maxwell admitted. I'll have the team look into it tomorrow. Vanessa's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. Perhaps you should have taken that last meeting today after all. Before Maxwell could respond, they were approached by James Westlake himself, the founder and CEO of Westlake Educational Systems. He was a distinguished man in his 50s, with salt and pepper hair and an easy confidence that came from building his company from the ground up. Maxwell Morgan, Westlake extended his hand. I was hoping to run into you tonight. Maxwell shook his hand firmly. James, good to see you. This is Vanessa Winters, our Chief Marketing Officer at Pinnacle. A pleasure, Westlake nodded to Vanessa before turning back to Maxwell. I understand your team has been trying to schedule a meeting with me. Yes, we have some proposals we'd like to discuss. Westlake smiled, a hint of amusement in his eyes. I'm sure you do. Unfortunately, my schedule has become quite full recently, new projects demanding my attention. Anything interesting? Maxwell asked, keeping his tone casual despite the warning bells ringing in his head. Very interesting, actually. I've recently joined the board of a remarkable new foundation, the Phoenix Foundation. Are you familiar with it? Maxwell felt as if the air had been sucked from the room. Vaguely, he managed. Its founder has a truly inspiring vision, arts education as a vehicle for transformation. We're exploring ways to integrate their approach into our educational software. How innovative, Vanessa said, her grip tightening on Maxwell's arm. Indeed, Westlake agreed. In fact, I'm hosting a dinner next week to introduce some key investors to the foundation. You should come, Morgan. I think you'd find it enlightening. Thank you for the invitation, Maxwell said stiffly. I'll check my schedule. Do that, Westlake smiled again, this time with a knowing look that made Maxwell's skin crawl. The founder is quite remarkable. Eliza Morgan. I believe you know her? With that parting shot, Westlake moved away, leaving Maxwell and Vanessa standing in stunned silence. Your ex-wife is working with Westlake? Vanessa hissed once they were alone. Did you know about this? Of course not, Maxwell snapped, his mind racing. Eliza and Westlake? How had that happened? And what did it mean for the acquisition? This could be a disaster, Vanessa continued, her perfect composure slipping. If she turns Westlake against us, she wouldn't do that, Maxwell interrupted, though he wasn't entirely sure. The Eliza he'd left wouldn't have, but the woman in that photo, cutting the ribbon with such confidence, was someone he didn't quite recognize. Wouldn't she? You left her for me, Maxwell. Women don't forget things like that. Maxwell's phone buzzed in his pocket, a text from his CFO. Westlake stock jumped 8% today on rumors of new educational initiative. Need to talk ASAP. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. Maxwell smiled and networked on autopilot, his mind consumed with this new development. By the time they returned to the penthouse, his head was pounding with tension. "We need to accelerate the Westlake acquisition," he told Vanessa as they entered the sleek modern space that still didn't quite feel like home, "before Eliza's foundation complicates things further." Vanessa kicked off her heels, pouring herself a glass of wine. "And how do you propose to do that when Westlake is clearly already in bed with your ex-wife? Figuratively speaking, of course." She paused, studying his expression. "Or perhaps not figuratively." "Don't be ridiculous," Maxwell snapped, though the same thought had occurred to him. The way Westlake had spoken about Eliza with such admiration. "This is business, not personal." "Everything is personal, Maxwell. You taught me that." Vanessa sipped her wine, watching him over the rim of her glass. "So what's the plan?" Maxwell loosened his tie, mind already formulating strategies. "We increase our offer, make it too good to refuse regardless of any personal entanglements. And if that doesn't work? Then we find leverage," Maxwell said coldly. "Everyone has a pressure point." Vanessa smiled, a predatory expression that matched his own. This was why they worked well together. They understood the ruthlessness required for success. "That's the Maxwell Morgan I know." Later that night, unable to sleep, Maxwell found himself once again on the Phoenix Foundation's website. There were more photos now, Eliza working with children, speaking at community events, standing proudly between Lily and Rose at what appeared to be a fundraiser. He clicked on the Our Team page and froze. There was James Westlake, listed as a board member and major donor. His bio mentioned his personal commitment to the Foundation's mission and leadership. Maxwell closed the laptop with more force than necessary. Whatever was happening between Eliza and Westlake, professionally or otherwise, he couldn't allow it to interfere with his plans. The Westlake acquisition was too important to Pinnacle's growth strategy. Tomorrow, he would double the offer. Everyone had a price, even James Westlake. The next morning, Maxwell called an emergency meeting with his executive team. The sleek conference room at Pinnacle's headquarters filled quickly, executives filing in with curious expressions. Maxwell rarely called emergency meetings. His preference for careful planning was well known. "The Westlake acquisition has hit a complication," he announced without preamble once everyone was seated. "James Westlake has formed a partnership with the Phoenix Foundation, a new arts education nonprofit." Harrison Wells frowned. "What does an arts foundation have to do with our acquisition?" Maxwell hesitated, reluctant to reveal the personal connection. Vanessa, seated to his right, answered for him. "The Phoenix Foundation was founded by Eliza Morgan," she said, her tone professionally neutral, despite the undercurrent of tension. "Maxwell's ex-wife." A ripple of uncomfortable glances passed around the table. Everyone knew about Maxwell's divorce, though he had kept the details private. "Is this going to be a problem?" asked Patricia Chen, Pinnacle's legal counsel. "Not if we handle it correctly," Maxwell replied, his voice steady. "I want to increase our offer by 15%, make it too attractive to refuse regardless of any other considerations." Harrison's eyebrows shot up. 15%? That's an additional $30 million, Maxwell. "I'm aware of the numbers, Harrison. The board may have concerns about such a significant increase without clear justification." Maxwell fixed him with a cold stare. "The justification is securing Westlake before our competitors do. Their educational software platform is the best in the industry, and their user base is exactly the demographic we need to expand into." "And this has nothing to do with your ex-wife's involvement?" Patricia asked carefully. "My personal life is irrelevant to this decision," Maxwell said firmly. "Prepare the new offer. I want it on Westlake's desk by the end of the day." As the team dispersed to carry out his instructions, Maxwell remained in the conference room, staring out at the Boston skyline. The city spread below him, a testament to human ambition and achievement. Somewhere out there was the converted warehouse that housed the Phoenix Foundation. Somewhere out there, Eliza was building something new from the ashes of their marriage. His phone buzzed with a text from Lily. "Dad, can we meet for coffee this weekend? Need to talk about something." Maxwell hesitated, then replied, "Saturday, 10 a.m. at Thinking Cup?" His schedule was packed, but he could make time for his daughter. Despite what Eliza might think, he hadn't stopped caring about the twins. The response came quickly. See you then. Maxwell slipped his phone back into his pocket, pushing away the nagging guilt that had become his constant companion. He had made his choice. The divorce had been necessary, a strategic decision for his future. For all their futures, really. Eliza and the girls would be fine. More than fine, if the Phoenix Foundation's early success was any indication. So why did he feel this persistent unease? Maxwell? Vanessa appeared in the doorway. The Westlake team is online too. They want to discuss meeting times. He nodded, pushing personal thoughts aside. I'll take it in my office. The rest of the week passed in a blur of negotiations and strategy sessions. The increased offer had gotten Westlake's attention, but they were being frustratingly non-committal. Maxwell found himself checking the Phoenix Foundation's website daily, looking for any updates that might give him insight into Westlake's thinking. On Friday evening, a new post appeared. Phoenix Foundation announces groundbreaking partnership with Westlake Educational Systems to develop arts-integrated learning software for underserved schools. Accompanying the announcement was a photo of Eliza and James Westlake, standing close together at what appeared to be a celebratory dinner. They were looking at each other, both smiling, with an ease and warmth that made Maxwell's stomach clench. He closed the browser window with more force than necessary, just as Vanessa entered his home office. Bad news? She asked, noting his expression. Westlake and the Phoenix Foundation have announced a software development partnership. Vanessa's perfect features hardened. That complicates things. It changes nothing, Maxwell insisted. The acquisition will proceed. And if Westlake refuses? Everyone has a price, Vanessa. We just haven't found his yet. She studied him for a moment. This is becoming personal for you. It's business, Maxwell snapped. Nothing more. If you say so. Her tone made it clear she didn't believe him. Don't forget we have the charity gala next month. The board expects us both to attend. Maxwell nodded absently, his mind still on the photo of Eliza and Westlake. Which charity is it this year? Vanessa hesitated. Actually, the board has selected the Phoenix Foundation. Maxwell's head snapped up. What? It's generating considerable buzz in philanthropic circles. Their arts education program for at-risk youth has shown remarkable results. Several board members' wives are involved. Find another charity. Maxwell, that would look petty. The Phoenix Foundation is this year's darling. Refusing to support it would raise questions. He knew she was right. Image was everything in his world. Fine, minimum donation, and I'll send a representative in my place. Vanessa's perfect features hardened slightly. The board expects you to attend, with me. The thought of facing Eliza publicly with Vanessa on his arm made Maxwell's stomach clench. But business was business. Make the arrangements, he conceded. Saturday morning arrived with unseasonable warmth, a gentle reminder that spring was approaching. Maxwell arrived at the Thinking Cup Cafe 10 minutes early, securing a quiet table in the corner. He ordered his usual black coffee and, after a moment's hesitation, a chai latte for Lily. It had been her favorite since she was 15. When she walked in, Maxwell was struck by how grown-up she looked. Her dark hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail, and she carried herself with a confidence that reminded him painfully of Eliza. "Dad?" she nodded, sliding into the seat across from him. "I ordered your chai," he said, pushing the cup toward her. "Still your favorite?" Surprise flickered across her face. "Yes, thank you." An awkward silence fell between them. Maxwell searched for something to say, realizing with a pang how little he knew about his daughter's current life. "Congratulations on MIT. Early decision is impressive." "Thanks." Lily wrapped her hands around the warm cup. "Actually, that's part of what I wanted to talk to you about. I've decided not to go." Maxwell blinked in surprise. "Not go to MIT, but it's been your dream school since you were 12. "Things change," Lily said, a hint of challenge in her voice. "Rose and I have decided to go to Stanford together. They have an excellent arts and technology program that aligns with the work we're doing at Mom's Foundation." "The Phoenix Foundation," Maxwell said carefully. "Yes." Lily's expression softened with pride. "It's amazing, Dad. What Mom's building. You should see it. I've been following its progress online. Lily studied him over her cup. Have you? Interesting. Another silence, heavier this time. Is that all you wanted to discuss? Maxwell asked finally. No, Lily set down her cup. I wanted to ask why you haven't returned Rose's calls. She's reached out to you 3 times in the past month. Maxwell shifted uncomfortably. I've been extremely busy with a major acquisition. Too busy for a 5-minute call with your daughter? It's not that simple, Lily. Actually, it is that simple, Dad. Her voice was steady, but he could see the hurt in her eyes so like his own. You either make time for the people you claim to care about, or you don't. Actions speak louder than words. Maxwell felt a flash of irritation. I'm providing for both of you. Your college funds are fully secured. Your mother kept the house. What more do you want from me? To be our father, Lily said simply, not just a bank account. The words hit him like a physical blow. I am your father. Are you? When was the last time you asked about our lives? Do you even know that Rose won the state science fair? Or that I've been helping Mom develop the Foundation's outreach program? Maxwell had no answer. The truth was, he didn't know these things. He had been so focused on building his new life with Vanessa, on the Westlake acquisition, on moving forward that he had barely looked back. I'm sorry, he said finally, the words feeling inadequate. I've been distracted. With Vanessa, Lily said, a hint of bitterness creeping into her voice. Your new, improved partner. That's not fair. Isn't it? You left Mom for someone who fits better with your public image, someone who doesn't embarrass you at company events. Is that what your mother told you? Mom hasn't said a single negative thing about you, Lily replied, surprising him. Not once, even when she had every right to. That's just who she is. Maxwell felt a twinge of shame. It was true. Eliza had always been gracious, even in the face of his betrayal. It was one of the qualities he had once loved about her. The Phoenix Foundation, he said, changing the subject. It seems to be doing well. Lily's expression brightened immediately. It's incredible, Dad. We're already working with 5 schools in underserved neighborhoods. The kids are so talented. They just needed someone to believe in them. And James Westlake is involved? Something flickered in Lily's eyes. Awareness, perhaps, of the real question behind his query. Mr. Westlake has been very supportive, both professionally and personally. Personally? He makes Mom happy, Lily said directly. He respects her work, treats her as an equal. The implication hung in the air between them. Unlike you. Maxwell took a sip of his now cold coffee, buying time to compose himself. The thought of Eliza with Westlake shouldn't bother him. He had moved on. He had Vanessa. This was what he had wanted. I'm glad, he said finally, surprised to find he partly meant it. Your mother deserves happiness. Lily studied him for a long moment. So do you, Dad. But real happiness, not just success and status. Before Maxwell could respond, Lily glanced at her watch. I have to go. Rose and I are helping with a workshop at the Foundation today. Of course, Maxwell stood as she did. Lily, I'll call Rose, soon. His daughter gave him a small, sad smile. I hope you do, Dad. We miss you. The real you, not the CEO of Pinnacle Innovations. After she left, Maxwell remained at the table, turning their conversation over in his mind. The real you. When had he last been that person? When had Maxwell Morgan, the father, the husband, been subsumed by Maxwell Morgan, the CEO? He paid the bill and walked out into the spring sunshine, his thoughts in turmoil. On impulse, instead of heading back to the penthouse, he directed his driver to take him past the Phoenix Foundation. The converted warehouse was alive with activity even on a Saturday. Through the large windows, he could see groups of children engaged in various arts activities. Volunteers moved among them, offering guidance and encouragement. And there, in the center of it all, was Eliza. She wore simple jeans and a blue sweater, her hair pulled back in a casual bun. She was helping a young boy with what appeared to be a painting, her expression animated as she demonstrated a technique. Maxwell watched from the car, a strange ache building in his chest. She looked happy, fulfilled, more vibrant than she had in the later years of their marriage. Had he done that to her? Dimmed her light with his ambition and expectations? As he watched, James Westlake appeared, carrying what looked like art supplies. He said something that made Eliza laugh, her whole face lighting up. The easy intimacy between them was unmistakable. Maxwell instructed his driver to continue on. He had seen enough. Back at the penthouse, Vanessa was working on her laptop, sleek and polished, even in casual weekend attire. She looked up as he entered. "How was coffee with Lily?" "Enlightening," Maxwell said, pouring himself a scotch despite the early hour. "She and Rose are going to Stanford instead of MIT and Harvard, to be closer to their mother's foundation." Vanessa raised an eyebrow. "That's unexpected. I thought they were following in your academic footsteps." "Apparently things change." He took a long sip of his drink. "Westlake was at the foundation today." "On a Saturday?" Vanessa closed her laptop, giving him her full attention. "That seems beyond professional interest." "It is," Maxwell confirmed. "According to Lily, he makes Eliza happy." "And that bothers you?" It wasn't a question. Maxwell turned to face her. "It complicates the acquisition." "Is that all it does?" He met her gaze directly. "What are you asking, Vanessa?" "I'm asking if you still have feelings for your ex-wife." "Don't be ridiculous. We've been divorced for months. I'm with you now." Vanessa stood, moving to stand before him. "That's not an answer, Maxwell." He set down his glass with deliberate care. "My personal history with Eliza is irrelevant. My focus is on Pinnacle's future, our future." She studied him for a long moment, then nodded, seemingly satisfied. "Good, because the charity gala is in 3 weeks, and we need to present a united front." "The Phoenix Foundation Gala," Maxwell said, unable to keep the edge from his voice. "Yes, I've already had my stylist pull some options. We need to look perfect." Perfect. The word echoed in Maxwell's mind. His life with Vanessa was perfect on the surface, the successful CEO and his beautiful, accomplished partner. They attended the right events, knew the right people, lived in the right neighborhood. So why did his conversation with Lily leave him feeling so hollow? The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of work and social obligations. Maxwell threw himself into the Westlake acquisition with renewed determination, increasing their offer yet again despite the board's concerns. He called Rose as promised, but the conversation was stilted and brief. The damage to their relationship couldn't be repaired with a single phone call. The night of the gala arrived with merciless speed. Maxwell adjusted his bow tie in the mirror, trying to ignore the tension headache building behind his eyes. "Ready?" Vanessa appeared beside him, resplendent in a designer gown that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. "Let's get this over with," he muttered. The event was held at the Boston Museum of Fine Arts, its grand hall transformed into an elegant wonderland of lights and flowers. Maxwell kept his expression neutral as they entered, nodding to board members and industry colleagues. Maxwell Morgan, a familiar voice, stopped him cold. "I wasn't sure you'd come." He turned to face his ex-wife. Eliza looked different, confident, luminous in a simple emerald gown that brought out the green in her hazel eyes. Her hair, once always pulled back in a practical ponytail, now fell in soft waves around her shoulders. "Eliza," he managed, "congratulations on your foundation's success." "Thank you." Her smile was genuine but reserved. "Vanessa, lovely to meet you properly. I've heard wonderful things about your marketing strategies at Pinnacle." Vanessa, clearly surprised by Eliza's graciousness, offered a tight smile. "Your foundation has made quite an impression." "We have passionate people," Eliza replied. "Speaking of which, I should continue my rounds. Enjoy the evening." As she walked away, Maxwell noticed heads turning to follow her progress. When had Eliza developed such presence? Throughout the evening, Maxwell watched his ex-wife from a distance. She moved through the crowd with easy confidence, laughing with donors, earnestly discussing programs with educators. This wasn't the woman he'd left, the quiet homemaker who'd been content to remain in his shadow. "Dad!" Maxwell turned to find Lily approaching, elegant in a navy blue dress, his heart clenched at the sight of his daughter. When had she become so grown up? "Lily," he embraced her awkwardly, "I didn't know you'd be here." "Rose and I are both interning at the foundation this summer before college." Her smile dimmed slightly as she acknowledged Vanessa with a polite nod. "How is Stanford preparing going?" Maxwell asked, desperate for safe conversation. Great. Rose is excited about the Joint Arts and Technology program. I thought Rose was set on Harvard's computer science program. Lily's expression cooled. You'd know these things if you returned our calls, Dad. Before Maxwell could respond, the lights dimmed and a spotlight illuminated the small stage where Eliza now stood. Thank you all for coming tonight, she began, her clear voice carrying through the hall. 1 year ago, Phoenix Foundation was just a dream born from personal pain. The room fell silent, captivated. When my marriage ended, I had a choice, to remain in the ashes or to rise. I chose to rise, not just for myself, but for my daughters, and for every child who needs to know that endings can become beautiful beginnings. Maxwell shifted uncomfortably. Tonight, I'm proud to announce that Phoenix Foundation will be opening 5 new arts education centers across Massachusetts next year, thanks to your generosity and our new partnership with Westlake Educational Systems. Maxwell froze. Westlake, the very company he was trying to acquire. I'd like to introduce our new board member and major benefactor, James Westlake. A distinguished man in his 50s joined Eliza on stage, placing a supportive hand on her lower back with easy familiarity. Eliza's vision aligned perfectly with our mission at Westlake, James spoke into the microphone, and I'm personally invested in seeing it succeed. The way he looked at Eliza made Maxwell's blood run cold. This wasn't just a business partnership. Did you know about this? He hissed to Vanessa. She looked equally shocked. Westlake never mentioned. Ladies and gentlemen, Eliza continued, please enjoy the student art exhibition in the East Wing. Each piece tells a story of transformation, something I've come to value deeply. As applause filled the room, Maxwell felt the carefully constructed pillars of his new life beginning to crumble. After the speeches, Maxwell made his way to the bar, needing a moment away from the constant networking and forced smiles. As he waited for his scotch, a familiar voice spoke beside him. She's quite remarkable, isn't she? Maxwell turned to find James Westlake standing there, his expression pleasant but evaluating. Eliza has always been remarkable, Maxwell replied carefully. I'm glad others are finally noticing. Including you? Westlake raised an eyebrow. Interesting. What's that supposed to mean? Just an observation. Westlake accepted a glass of wine from the bartender. Your offer, by the way, is very generous. But not generous enough, Maxwell guessed. Westlake smiled slightly. It's not about the money, Morgan. It's always about the money. Perhaps in your world. Westlake took a sip of his wine. In mine, other considerations sometimes take precedence, such as purpose, legacy, making a genuine difference. Westlake's gaze drifted to where Eliza stood, surrounded by admirers. Finding someone who shares your vision. The implication was clear. Maxwell felt a surge of something dangerously close to jealousy. And Eliza shares your vision? More than shares it. She's expanded it. Westlake's expression softened as he watched her. Do you know what makes her foundation so successful, Morgan? It's not just about teaching art. It's about showing people they can transform pain into beauty, that they can rise from whatever has broken them. Maxwell said nothing, the words hitting too close to home. I should rejoin the party, Westlake said after a moment. Oh, and regarding your acquisition offer, I'll be declining formally next week. Westlake Educational Systems will remain independent, with a new focus on arts-integrated education through our partnership with the Phoenix Foundation. He extended his hand. Maxwell shook it automatically, his mind racing with implications. No hard feelings, I hope, Westlake added. It's just business after all. As Westlake walked away, Maxwell remained at the bar, the untouched scotch forgotten in his hand. The Westlake acquisition had been the centerpiece of Pinnacle's growth strategy for the coming year. The board would be furious, the stock would take a hit, and all because his ex-wife had somehow charmed James Westlake into choosing her vision over Maxwell's money. There you are. Vanessa appeared at his side, her smile fixed but her eyes concerned. What did Westlake want? To inform me that he's rejecting our offer, Maxwell said flatly. He's staying independent to focus on his partnership with the Phoenix Foundation. Vanessa's perfect composure slipped for a moment. That's problematic. An understatement. We need to do damage control. The board. We'll have to wait until tomorrow, Maxwell cut her off. Tonight, we maintain appearances. They rejoined the party, Maxwell moving through the motions of socializing while his mind worked furiously on contingency plans. The evening seemed endless, each moment stretching into the next with excruciating slowness. Finally, as the event began to wind down, Maxwell found himself alone for a moment, standing before a student artwork display. The painting before him showed a phoenix rising from flames, its wings spread wide against a backdrop of city skyline that was unmistakably Boston. It's by one of our 14-year-olds from Dorchester, Eliza's voice came from behind him. Remarkable talent, don't you think? Maxwell turned to face her. Up close, the changes in her were even more apparent. There was a quiet confidence in her posture, a light in her eyes that he hadn't seen in years. Very impressive, he agreed. Your foundation is doing important work. Thank you. She studied him for a moment. I heard about Westlake's decision. I'm sorry if that complicates things for Pinnacle. Are you? The words came out more sharply than he intended. Eliza didn't flinch. Contrary to what you might think, Maxwell, I take no pleasure in your professional setbacks. That was never who I was. The gentle rebuke stung because it was true. Eliza had always celebrated his successes, supported him through failures. Even during the divorce, she had been remarkably fair, asking for far less than she was entitled to. I know, he admitted. That was unfair of me. Surprise flickered across her face at his concession. The girls mentioned you've been in touch. I had coffee with Lily, called Rose. He hesitated. I should have done it sooner. Yes? You should have. Eliza's tone was matter-of-fact rather than accusatory. They miss you, Maxwell, despite everything. I miss them too, he said, surprised by how much he meant it. A comfortable silence fell between them, reminiscent of quieter moments in their marriage. You seem happy, Maxwell said finally. The foundation, Westlake. A soft smile touched Eliza's lips. I am happy, for the first time in a long while. I'm glad, he said, and was startled to realize he meant it. You deserve happiness, Eliza. She studied him for a long moment. So do you, Maxwell. Real happiness, not just success. Before he could respond, James Westlake appeared at Eliza's side, placing a gentle hand at the small of her back. There you are. The mayor would like to speak with you before he leaves. Of course. Eliza turned back to Maxwell. It was good to see you. Take care of yourself. As she walked away with Westlake, Maxwell watched them, noting the easy intimacy between them, the way Westlake leaned down to whisper something that made Eliza laugh. They looked right together in a way that made something twist painfully in his chest. Ready to go? Vanessa appeared beside him, her smile tight with strain. We should leave while we can still make a graceful exit. Maxwell nodded, allowing her to lead him toward the door. As they waited for their car, he found his gaze drawn back to Eliza and Westlake, now deep in conversation with the mayor. They looked like a power couple, but not in the calculated, image-conscious way that he and Vanessa projected. Their connection seemed genuine, built on mutual respect and shared vision. When had he and Eliza lost that? Or had they ever truly had it? The drive back to the penthouse was silent, both of them lost in their own thoughts. It wasn't until they were inside that Vanessa finally spoke. The board will expect a new strategy by Monday morning, she said, kicking off her heels. We need to get ahead of this before the market reacts. Maxwell nodded absently, pouring himself a drink. I'll work on it tomorrow. We should work on it now, Vanessa insisted. This is a crisis, Maxwell. It's a setback, not a crisis, he corrected. Pinnacle will survive without Westlake. Vanessa stared at him in disbelief. That's not the Maxwell Morgan I know. The man I know would be strategizing already, finding a way to turn this to his advantage. Perhaps you don't know me as well as you think, Maxwell said quietly. A tense silence fell between them. This is about her, isn't it? Vanessa finally asked, seeing Eliza tonight with Westlake. It's affected you. Maxwell considered denying it, but what was the point? It's made me think, he admitted, about choices, consequences. Regrets? Vanessa's voice was sharp. Reflections, he corrected. Seeing Eliza tonight, she's changed, or perhaps she's finally becoming who she always could have been if I hadn't. If you hadn't what? Vanessa demanded. Held her back? Is that what you think? Maxwell sighed, suddenly tired. I don't know what I think anymore. Vanessa studied him for a long moment, her expression hardening. I think you need to decide what you want, Maxwell. Who you want. Because I didn't sign up to compete with a ghost. With that, she turned and walked to the bedroom, closing the door firmly behind her. Maxwell remained in the living room, drink in hand, staring out at the city lights. The Westlake acquisition was dead. His relationship with Vanessa was showing cracks, his daughters were distant, and his ex-wife was thriving without him. None of this was part of the plan. None of this was what he had envisioned when he decided to leave Eliza for Vanessa, to reshape his life into something more aligned with his public image. For the first time in years, Maxwell Morgan found himself questioning whether he had made the right choice after all. The Westlake acquisition fell through spectacularly the following week. James Westlake publicly announced his company would remain independent with a new philanthropic focus on arts education through their partnership with the Phoenix Foundation. Pinnacle's stock dropped 12% in a single day. The board wants an emergency meeting, Vanessa informed Maxwell, her voice tight with barely controlled panic. Harrison is suggesting we pause all acquisitions until we stabilize. Maxwell barely heard her, his attention fixed on the business news playing on the television. There was Eliza, standing beside James Westlake at a press conference, announcing a revolutionary new arts-integrated curriculum for underserved schools. Maxwell, Vanessa snapped, are you listening? This is a crisis. He turned to her, suddenly seeing with perfect clarity what his life had become, an endless pursuit of more wealth, more status, more power. And for what? Handle the board, he said quietly. I need some air. Before she could protest, he grabbed his keys and left the penthouse. Maxwell drove aimlessly through Boston streets, eventually finding himself in the familiar neighborhood of his former home. Without conscious decision, he parked across from the Phoenix Foundation's headquarters, the converted warehouse he'd seen in photos. Through the large windows, he could see a bustling hive of activity. Young people moved purposefully through colorful spaces. Music drifted out from open doors. On the building's side wall, a magnificent mural depicted a phoenix rising, its wings sheltering diverse groups of children. As he watched, the front doors opened and his daughters emerged, laughing together as they always had. Rose said something that made Lily throw her head back in delight. They looked happy, unburdened. Maxwell sank lower in his seat, the weight of what he'd discarded pressing against his chest. The girls were joined by Eliza and James Westlake. The four of them stood talking for a moment before James offered Eliza his jacket against the evening chill. The simple gesture of care made Maxwell's throat tighten. He had never put Eliza's needs before his own, not once in 18 years. As the group walked toward the parking lot, Maxwell started his car and drove away, a plan already forming in his mind. Back at the penthouse, Vanessa was waiting, her expression a mixture of concern and irritation. Where have you been? The board has been calling non-stop. I've been thinking, Maxwell said, his voice calm despite the turmoil inside him. About? Making a donation to the Phoenix Foundation. Vanessa stared at him incredulously. You want to what? Donate $50 million to the Phoenix Foundation, Maxwell repeated calmly. Anonymously. Have you lost your mind after what Eliza and Westlake did to our acquisition? They didn't do anything to us. Westlake made a business decision that aligned with his values. Since when do you care about values over profit? Vanessa's perfect features contorted with disbelief. This is about her, isn't it? You're not over her. Maxwell considered the accusation. This isn't about getting Eliza back. It's about finally doing something right. The board will never approve. It's my personal money, not Pinnacle's. The board has no say. Vanessa's eyes narrowed. If you do this, we're finished. Maxwell nodded, unsurprised. Their relationship had always been transactional, mutual benefit wrapped in physical attraction. Without his unwavering focus on empire building, he held little appeal for her. I'll have my things out by the weekend, he said quietly. Vanessa stared at him for a long moment, as if waiting for him to reconsider. When he didn't, she shook her head in disbelief. You're throwing away everything we've built. For what? Some misguided attempt at redemption. Perhaps, Maxwell admitted, or perhaps I'm finally recognizing what actually matters. And I don't matter? Her voice was sharp with hurt pride. Maxwell looked at her, truly looked at her. Vanessa was beautiful, ambitious, intelligent. They were well matched in many ways, but there had always been something missing, something he'd been unwilling to acknowledge until now. We want different things, he said finally. I'm beginning to realize that success without meaning is just empty achievement. How philosophical, Vanessa said bitterly. And conveniently timed after your ex-wife has found success and a new man. This isn't about Eliza and Westlake. Isn't it? Vanessa challenged. You were perfectly content with our life until you saw her thriving without you. There was enough truth in her words to sting. Had seeing Eliza's transformation been the catalyst for his own soul-searching? Perhaps, but that didn't make his realizations any less valid. I'm sorry, he said simply. You deserve someone who wants the same things you do. Vanessa gathered her dignity around her like armor. Yes, I do. Someone who doesn't abandon ship at the first sign of trouble. Someone who keeps his promises. The irony of her words wasn't lost on Maxwell. Hadn't he done exactly that to Eliza? Abandoned her when she no longer fit his vision of success? I'll sleep in the guest room tonight, he said, and make arrangements for a new place tomorrow. Vanessa turned away, her posture rigid. Do whatever you want, Maxwell. You always have. The next morning, Maxwell contacted his private banker to arrange the anonymous donation to the Phoenix Foundation, $50 million, a significant portion of his personal wealth, but not enough to impact his lifestyle substantially. The banker raised an eyebrow at the request for anonymity, but asked no questions. With that done, Maxwell turned his attention to Pinnacle. The company was in damage control mode following the failed Westlake acquisition. The board was demanding answers, shareholders were nervous, and competitors were circling, sensing weakness. In the past, Maxwell would have thrown himself into crisis management, working 18-hour days until the situation stabilized. Now, he found himself strangely detached. The company would survive, stock prices would recover, life would go on. What wouldn't recover so easily were his relationships with his daughters. That required a different kind of attention. He called Rose first, catching her between classes at her volunteer shift at the Phoenix Foundation. Dad? Her surprise was evident in her voice. Is everything okay? Everything's fine, he assured her. I just wanted to check in, see how you're doing. A pause. I'm good. Busy with the foundation and getting ready for Stanford. Lily mentioned you're focusing on arts and technology. Yeah, her voice warmed slightly. I'm developing a program that uses AI to analyze artistic expression as a therapeutic tool. It's still in early stages, but the preliminary results are promising. That sounds fascinating, Maxwell said, genuinely impressed. I'd love to hear more about it sometime. Another pause, longer this time. Really? The skepticism in her voice was like a knife to his heart. Had he shown so little interest in her passions? Really, he confirmed. Maybe over dinner this week? Just the two of us? Sure, that would be nice. They arranged to meet on Thursday at a small Italian restaurant Rose had always loved. After hanging up, Maxwell sat at his desk, staring at the family photo he kept hidden in his drawer. It was from years ago. The twins must have been about 10. All four of them on a beach somewhere, squinting into the sun, genuinely happy. When had he stopped prioritizing that happiness? When had success and image become more important than the joy on his daughters' faces? The rest of the week passed in a blur of meetings and arrangements. Maxwell found a furnished apartment in Back Bay, smaller and less ostentatious than the penthouse, but comfortable. Vanessa remained coldly civil as he moved his things out, both of them pretending the end of their relationship was mutual and amicable. The dinner with Rose was awkward at first, both of them unsure how to bridge the distance that had grown between them. But as the evening progressed, Maxwell found himself genuinely engaged in hearing about her work, her plans for college, her hopes for the future. You seem different, Rose observed as they shared a tiramisu. Less intense, Maxwell smiled slightly. I'm trying to be. Because of the Westlake thing? Lily told me it fell through. Partly, he admitted. It's made me reevaluate some priorities. Rose studied him with eyes too perceptive for her 18 years. Is that why you and Vanessa split up? News traveled fast. You heard about that? Mom mentioned it. She seemed concerned about you, actually. Maxwell blinked in surprise. Eliza was concerned about me. Rose shrugged. She said change is hard, even when it's necessary, that you might need support. The generosity of spirit in that sentiment was so typically Eliza that it made Maxwell's chest ache. Even after everything he'd done, she still found compassion for him. Your mother is a remarkable woman, he said quietly. She is, Rose agreed. She's really found herself with the foundation. It's like she's become the person she was always meant to be. And James Westlake? He's good to her? Rose's expression turned cautious. He is. He respects her, supports her vision without trying to take over. They're good together. Maxwell nodded, pushing down the complicated emotions that rose at her description. I'm glad. She deserves that. Rose tilted her head, studying him. Why the sudden interest in Mom's happiness? It's not sudden, Maxwell said. I've always wanted her to be happy. I just lost sight of what that meant, of what a lot of things meant. Like being our dad? Rose's directness was both painful and refreshing. Yes, he admitted. I've made mistakes, Rose, many of them. But I'm trying to do better now. She considered this, then nodded slowly. Trying counts for something, but consistency matters more. I know, I'm working on that too. As they left the restaurant, Rose surprised him with a quick hug. This was nice, Dad. We should do it again. I'd like that, Maxwell said, his voice rough with emotion. Over the next few weeks, Maxwell established a new routine. He scaled back his hours at Pinnacle, delegating more responsibility to his executive team. He had regular dinners with Rose and Lily, sometimes together, sometimes individually. He started seeing a therapist, something he would have scoffed at just months ago, and he watched from afar as the Phoenix Foundation flourished with its mysterious new funding. The anonymous donation to the Phoenix Foundation made headlines. Speculation ran rampant about the mysterious benefactor who had enabled the organization to expand nationwide. Maxwell watched from afar as Eliza's vision flourished. He moved into a modest apartment, took a step back from day-to-day operations at Pinnacle, and began the slow, painful process of self-examination. He started therapy. He read books on emotional intelligence. He volunteered at a youth center teaching coding skills to teenagers. And most importantly, he began the delicate work of rebuilding relationships with his daughters. It started with text messages, then coffee meetings, eventually weekend visits. The girls were cautiously receptive, their natural compassion making space for his clumsy attempts at connection. Why now, Dad? Rose asked him directly during one of their coffee dates. What changed? Maxwell considered deflecting, but chose honesty instead. I saw what your mother created from the ruins of our marriage, and I realized I'd spent my life building things with no real value. Rose studied him with eyes too perceptive for her 18 years. Mom says the donation wasn't from Westlake. She thinks it was you. Maxwell neither confirmed nor denied. Your mother always was intuitive. She's happy, you know, with James. I'm glad, Maxwell said, surprised to find he meant it. She deserves happiness. Rose tilted her head. So do you, Dad, but you have to earn it. The words stayed with him, echoing in his mind during quiet moments. Happiness as something earned, not acquired or achieved. It was a foreign concept to a man who had spent his life accumulating success rather than cultivating joy. One evening, as Maxwell was leaving the youth center where he volunteered, he ran into Harrison Wells, one of Pinnacle's board members. Morgan. Harrison looked genuinely shocked to see him. What are you doing here? Maxwell gestured to the building behind them. I teach coding to teenagers on Wednesday evenings. Since when? A few months now. Harrison studied him with undisguised curiosity. First you scale back at Pinnacle, then the breakup with Vanessa, now volunteer work. People are talking, Maxwell. Let them talk, Maxwell said, surprised by how little he cared about the gossip. The board is concerned about your focus, your commitment. My commitment to Pinnacle remains strong, Maxwell assured him. but I'm rebalancing my priorities. Harrison shook his head in disbelief. This is about the Westlake thing, isn't it? And your ex-wife's foundation? It's about recognizing that success is hollow without meaning, Maxwell replied. Something I should have learned years ago. Very philosophical, Harrison said skeptically. Just don't let this midlife crisis or whatever it is affect Pinnacle's bottom line. As Harrison walked away, Maxwell found himself smiling slightly. 6 months ago, such a conversation would have filled him with anxiety about his image, his position, his power. Now, it barely registered. That night, he received a text from Lily. Phoenix Foundation anniversary celebration tonight. Mom's giving a speech. Thought you might want to come. 7 p.m. Maxwell stared at his phone, heart racing. Was this an olive branch? A test? After a moment's hesitation, he replied, I'll be there. The celebration was held at the Foundation's headquarters. Maxwell arrived early, hanging back near the entrance, uncertain of his welcome. The space had been transformed since he'd last glimpsed it, vibrant with student artwork, music, and laughter. You came. He turned to find Eliza watching him, her expression unreadable. Lily invited me, he explained quickly. If that's not okay. It's fine, Maxwell. Her smile was small but genuine. Actually, I've been meaning to thank you. For? Don't play coy. The anonymous donation. It could only have been you. Maxwell shrugged uncomfortably. You've built something remarkable here, Eliza. It deserves support. She studied him with those perceptive hazel eyes that had once known him better than anyone. You've changed. I'm trying to, he admitted. Too late for some things, I know. Eliza's expression softened. It's never too late to become a better person, Maxwell. That's the whole point of Phoenix. Transformation is always possible. Before he could respond, James Westlake approached, slipping an arm comfortably around Eliza's waist. Maxwell, he acknowledged with a nod. Glad you could make it. To Maxwell's surprise, there was no hostility in the other man's tone. James has been wanting to discuss something with you, Eliza said. I'll leave you two to talk while I prepare for my speech. As she walked away, Maxwell braced himself for confrontation. I'll be direct, James said. We're developing a technology education initiative for underserved communities. We need someone who understands both the tech world and has a genuine interest in education. Your daughters speak highly of your recent mentoring work. Maxwell blinked in surprise. You're offering me a job? A partnership, James corrected. Volunteer position on our advisory board. No compensation, but the potential for significant impact. Why would you want me involved? After the acquisition attempt, business is business, James shrugged, but this is about something more important. Besides, he added with a knowing smile, I recognize a man seeking redemption when I see one. Maxwell studied the man who had, in many ways, replaced him in Eliza's life. There was no smugness in Westlake's expression, no triumph, just a genuine offer of collaboration. I'd be honored, Maxwell said finally. Thank you. James nodded, satisfied. Excellent. We'll set up a meeting next week to discuss details. He glanced toward the stage where Eliza was preparing to speak. She's extraordinary, you know. I know, Maxwell agreed quietly. I just realized it too late. James gave him a considering look. Perhaps, or perhaps exactly when you needed to. With a final nod, he moved away to join Eliza at the stage. As the crowd gathered for Eliza's speech, Maxwell found himself standing between his daughters, their presence beside him a gift he'd once been too blind to value. Thanks for inviting me, he murmured to Lily. She shrugged, but her expression was softer than it had been in months. Mom said you'd want to be here. She's usually right about these things. Your mother is right about most things, Maxwell admitted. I should have listened to her more often. Rose slipped her hand into his, a gesture of forgiveness that made his throat tight with emotion. Better late than never, Dad. Eliza took the stage, confident and passionate as she spoke about transformation and second chances. Her gaze found Maxwell in the crowd, and she offered a small, acknowledging nod. It wasn't forgiveness exactly, but it was something equally precious, recognition of his efforts to change and perhaps the possibility of a different kind of future than the one he'd destroyed. As applause filled the room, Maxwell felt something unfamiliar unfurl in his chest. Not the sharp-edged ambition that had driven him for decades, but something warmer and more sustaining. Hope. For the first time in years, Maxwell Morgan understood that true wealth had nothing to do with stock prices or penthouse views. Real wealth was standing beside his daughters, supporting his ex-wife's vision from afar, and finally, becoming the man he should have been all along. The journey ahead would be long and imperfect, but as he watched Eliza embrace their daughters on stage, Maxwell made a silent promise to himself. This time, he wouldn't walk away. After the celebration, Maxwell found himself lingering, helping volunteers stack chairs and clean up. It was menial work, the kind he would have delegated without thought in his previous life. Now, there was something satisfying about the simple physical labor, about contributing in this small, tangible way. "Dad, what are you doing?" He looked up to find Rose watching him with amused surprise. "Helping," he said simply. "I can see that. It's just unexpected." Maxwell stacked another chair. "I'm trying to get better at doing the unexpected, at least the good kind of unexpected." Rose smiled, grabbing a chair to help. "Mom's impressed that you came tonight. She wasn't sure you would." "I almost didn't," he admitted. "It's complicated, seeing her with James." "Because you still have feelings for her?" Rose asked directly. Maxwell considered the question carefully. "Because I regret how I treated her, how I took her for granted. James sees her value in a way I failed to." "That's surprisingly self-aware, Dad." "Therapy helps," he said with a small smile. "Don't look so shocked. Even old dogs can learn new tricks." They worked in companionable silence for a few minutes before Rose spoke again. "You know, when you first left, I was so angry I could barely stand to hear your name. I thought you were selfish and shallow and just the worst." "All fair assessments at the time," Maxwell acknowledged, "but lately I've been thinking that maybe people really can change. If they want to badly enough." She gave him a sidelong glance. "Do you want to change?" "More than I've ever wanted anything," Maxwell said honestly, "including all the things I threw away your mother and you girls for." Rose nodded, satisfied. "Good, because Lily and I could use your help with something at the foundation, a new program combining technology and arts education, if you're interested." Maxwell felt a surge of emotion so powerful it momentarily robbed him of speech. This was more than forgiveness. It was inclusion, an invitation back into their lives in a meaningful way. "I'd be honored," he managed finally. As they finished cleaning up, Maxwell spotted Eliza across the room, deep in conversation with James. She laughed at something he said, her whole face lighting up with genuine joy. The sight brought a complicated mix of emotions, regret for what he'd lost, but also a genuine gladness that she had found happiness. James noticed him watching and gave a small nod of acknowledgement. There was no hostility in the gesture, no territorial warning, just one man recognizing another. Maxwell nodded back, a silent communication passing between them. "Take care of her. I will." Outside, as Maxwell prepared to leave, Lily approached him. "Dad, do you want to come to Sunday dinner this weekend?" "At Mom's house. James will be there, and Rose and I, of course." Maxwell stared at her in surprise. "Your mother would be okay with that." "It was her idea, actually." Lily shrugged. "She said something about how healing happens around tables, not in courtrooms." That sounded like Eliza, always finding the path to reconciliation, to wholeness. "I'd like that very much," he said. "Thank you." As he drove back to his apartment, Maxwell reflected on the evening. A year ago, his life had seemed perfect on the surface: successful company, beautiful younger partner, enviable lifestyle. Yet he had been hollow inside, chasing achievements that brought no lasting satisfaction. Now, his life looked very different. A smaller apartment, a scaled-back role at Pinnacle, no glamorous partner on his arm at industry events. By his old metrics, he had lost ground, failed even. But by new measures, the warmth in Rose's voice when she called, Lily's invitation to family dinner, the chance to contribute to something meaningful through the Phoenix Foundation. He was richer than he'd ever been. The anonymous donation to the Phoenix Foundation had been intended as a gesture of atonement, a way to support Eliza's vision without complicating her life with his presence. He hadn't expected it to open a door back into the lives of the people he had so carelessly discarded. He didn't deserve this second chance, but he was determined to honor it, to prove worthy of the trust his daughters were cautiously extending to him. Sunday dinner at the Morgan family home, still Eliza's house, though he had once considered it his, was surreal. Maxwell arrived exactly on time, a bottle of Eliza's favorite wine in hand, feeling more nervous than he had before any business presentation. Rose answered the door, welcoming him with a quick hug that felt like absolution. Mom's in the kitchen with James, Lily setting the table. The house looked different, warmer somehow, with new artwork on the walls and different furniture arrangements. It was still recognizably the place where he had lived for 15 years, but transformed, just as Eliza herself had been transformed. In the kitchen, Eliza and James worked side by side, moving around each other with the easy familiarity of a couple who had found their rhythm. It was painful to watch, but also right somehow. This was what Eliza deserved, a partner who shared the work, who occupied space beside her rather than above her. "Maxwell," Eliza greeted him with a smile that held no bitterness. "Thank you for coming." "Thank you for inviting me," he replied, offering the wine. "I remembered you liked this vineyard." "I still do," she said, accepting the bottle. "Some things don't change." James extended his hand. "Good to see you, Morgan. Eliza's been telling me about your early days at MIT. Quite the ambitious student, apparently." "While I was the impractical art history major," Eliza added with a laugh. "Opposites attract, I suppose." "Sometimes opposites complement each other perfectly," James said, his gaze warm as it rested on Eliza. Maxwell expected jealousy, but instead found himself nodding in agreement. "They do when both sides are valued equally, something I failed to understand." A brief silence followed his admission, broken by Lily calling from the dining room. "Is dinner ready? I'm starving." "Coming right up," Eliza called back. "Maxwell, would you mind carrying the salad?" Just like that, he was incorporated into the domestic scene, given a role included. The meal that followed was surprisingly comfortable, conversation flowing easily between courses. The twins shared stories about their foundation work. James discussed his educational software innovations, and Eliza spoke passionately about expanding the Phoenix Foundation's reach. Maxwell mostly listened, offering comments when appropriate, but content to observe the family dynamic. His family, though reconfigured now, with James occupying the place that had once been his. "Dad, tell them about the coding program you're developing for the youth center," Rose prompted during dessert. Maxwell blinked in surprise, both at being drawn into the conversation and at Rose's evident pride in his work. "It's still in early stages," he said modestly. "Just a basic introduction to programming concepts for disadvantaged teens." "Don't downplay it," Rose insisted. "He's created this amazing game-based learning system that teaches coding principles through collaborative challenges. The kids love it." "That sounds fascinating," James said, leaning forward with genuine interest. "We've been looking for more engaging ways to introduce coding in our educational software. I'd love to hear more about your approach." And just like that, Maxwell found himself deep in conversation with James Westlake, the man he had once viewed as a business rival, then as his replacement in Eliza's life, about educational methodology and technology integration. There was no competitive edge to their discussion, just shared enthusiasm for making complex concepts accessible to young minds. As the evening wound down, Maxwell helped clear the table, falling into the domestic rhythm as if he had never left. In the kitchen, he found himself alone with Eliza as she loaded the dishwasher. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for including me tonight. For everything." Eliza straightened, studying him with those perceptive eyes that had always seen through his corporate facade. "You're still the girl's father, Maxwell. That never changed." "I know, but I haven't been much of one lately." "You're trying now. That matters." She closed the dishwasher and leaned against the counter. "James told me about inviting you to join the advisory board. I think it's a good idea." "You do?" "Your business acumen combined with your new perspective could be valuable. Plus," she added with a small smile, "it would mean a lot to the girls to have you involved." Maxwell nodded, throat tight with emotion. "I'd like that. To be part of something meaningful, something that helps others instead of just accumulating more." The Phoenix Foundation is all about second chances, Eliza said softly. About rising from whatever has broken you. Everyone deserves that opportunity, even you, Maxwell. The simple generosity of her statement humbled him. After everything he had done, she still found room for compassion. You always were the better person between us, he said. It's not about better or worse, Eliza corrected gently. It's about growth, about becoming who you're meant to be, even if the path there is winding. As Maxwell prepared to leave, James approached him with a business card. My direct line, he explained, for when you're ready to discuss the advisory board position. No pressure, but I think you have a unique perspective that could benefit our work. Maxwell accepted the card, oddly touched by the gesture. Thank you, I'll be in touch soon. The twins hugged him goodbye, Rose warmly, Lily still a bit reserved but softening, and Eliza, in a moment that caught him completely off guard, briefly squeezed his hand. See you next Sunday? She asked. We're making it a regular thing. I'd like that, Maxwell said, meaning it more than she could know. As he drove home through the quiet Boston streets, Maxwell reflected on the evening. There had been no dramatic reconciliations, no emotional speeches, just the quiet reintegration of a man who had lost his way back into the orbit of the family he had once abandoned. It wasn't the life he had planned. It wasn't the perfect image he had pursued so relentlessly, but it was real. In a way, his existence with Vanessa had never been. Real connections, real purpose, real growth. For the first time in years, Maxwell Morgan felt truly wealthy, not in possessions or power, but in the things that actually mattered. Second chances, forgiveness, hope. The journey ahead would be long and imperfect, but as he thought of his daughter's cautious acceptance, of Eliza's generous spirit, of the opportunity to contribute to something meaningful through the Phoenix Foundation, Maxwell made a silent promise to himself. This time, he wouldn't walk away. This time, he would stay and do the hard, necessary work of becoming the man he should have been all along. A man worthy of the second chance he had been given. A man who understood finally that true wealth had nothing to do with bank accounts or business acquisitions. True wealth was family, purpose, love, and the courage to rise from the ashes of your mistakes to build something better. 1 year after the gala that had changed everything, Maxwell stood on the stage of the Phoenix Foundation's main hall, addressing a room full of donors, students, and community members. As the newly appointed head of the Foundation's Technology Education Initiative, he had been asked to speak about their latest program. When I first joined the Phoenix Foundation's advisory board, he began, I thought I was the one offering something valuable. My business experience, my technical knowledge, what I didn't realize was how much more I would receive in return. His gaze found his daughters in the crowd, now confident young women in their first year of college, home for the summer to work at the foundation. Beside them sat Eliza and James, their hands clasped together, listening attentively. The Phoenix Foundation taught me what true success looks like, Maxwell continued. It's not measured in stock prices or acquisitions. It's measured in lives changed, in potential unlocked, in second chances embraced. As he described the new coding program they were implementing across all Phoenix Foundation centers, Maxwell felt a sense of purpose that had eluded him throughout his corporate career. This wasn't about building his own empire or enhancing his personal brand. This was about creating opportunities for others, about using his skills and resources to make a genuine difference. After the presentation, as the crowd mingled during the reception, Maxwell found himself approached by Harrison Wells, his former board member at Pinnacle. Quite a change from the corporate boardroom, Harrison observed, gesturing around at the colorful space filled with student artwork and technology displays. A good change, Maxwell replied. Harrison studied him curiously. You seem different, happier actually. I am, Maxwell said simply. Even though Harrison glanced meaningfully toward where Eliza stood with James, clearly a couple. Maxwell followed his gaze, feeling a twinge of what might always be regret for what he had thrown away, but no longer the sharp pain of loss. Eliza deserves happiness. I'm glad she's found it. Harrison shook his head in disbelief. The Maxwell Morgan I knew would never have said that. The Maxwell Morgan you knew was chasing the wrong things, Maxwell said quietly. It took losing everything that actually mattered to realize that. As Harrison moved away, Rose approached, linking her arm through her father's. "Nice speech, Dad. Very inspiring." "Was it? I was nervous." Rose laughed. "You? The man who used to address shareholders without breaking a sweat?" "This matters more," Maxwell said simply. "Your opinion matters more." Rose's expression softened. "You really have changed." "I'm trying," he said, "every day." Later, as the event wound down, Maxwell found himself standing with Eliza near the student art display. James was deep in conversation with a potential donor, the twins helping the younger students clean up their projects. "The technology program is going to make a real difference," Eliza said. "You should be proud." "I am," Maxwell agreed. "But it's your vision that made all this possible, Eliza. You created something remarkable from the ruins of what I destroyed." Eliza was quiet for a moment, considering his words. "I prefer to think of it as transformation rather than destruction. Like the phoenix, something new rising from the ashes." "Still," Maxwell said, "I owe you an apology. A real one, not just for leaving, but for failing to see your value when we were together, for treating you as an accessory to my success rather than a partner in life." Eliza studied him, her expression thoughtful. "Thank you for saying that. It means a lot, especially now." "Now?" A soft smile touched her lips. "James asked me to marry him last night. I said yes." Maxwell felt a complex wave of emotions, a pang of loss, but also a genuine happiness for her. "Congratulations," he said sincerely. "He's a good man, better than I was." "Different," Eliza corrected gently. "You're becoming a good man too, Maxwell, just on a different timeline." As they stood there, surrounded by the vibrant evidence of Eliza's vision and compassion, Maxwell felt a sense of closure, not the bitter end he had once feared, nor the reconciliation he had briefly, foolishly hoped for after his breakup with Vanessa, but something equally valuable: peace, acceptance, the chance to be part of each other's lives in a new way. "The girls want you to be part of the wedding," Eliza said. "If that wouldn't be too awkward for you." "I'd be honored," Maxwell said, meaning it. "And James? How does he feel about that?" "It was his suggestion, actually." Eliza's expression was warm with love for her fiancé. "He said family is family, in all its complicated forms." Family. Despite everything, despite his worst mistakes, he was still family. The realization was both humbling and deeply comforting. As Maxwell drove home that night to his modest apartment, no longer the sleek penthouse of his previous life, but a warm, comfortable space filled with photos of his daughters and books on subjects that interested him beyond business, he reflected on the journey of the past year. He had lost much: his marriage, his relationship with Vanessa, his position as CEO of Pinnacle. He had stepped down 6 months ago to focus on the Phoenix Foundation, though he remained on the board. By the metrics of his former life, these were devastating failures. But he had gained so much more: a genuine relationship with his daughters, meaningful work that made a difference in young lives, a sense of purpose beyond accumulation and achievement, and perhaps, most surprisingly, a different kind of relationship with Eliza, not romantic, but based on mutual respect and shared commitment to their daughters and the foundation. As he prepared for bed, Maxwell's phone buzzed with a text from Lily. "Thanks for today, Dad. Your speech inspired one of my students to sign up for the coding workshop. You're making a difference." Such a simple message, but it filled him with more satisfaction than any quarterly earnings report ever had. For the first time in his life, Maxwell Morgan understood that true wealth had nothing to do with stock prices or penthouse views. Real wealth was in the relationships he was rebuilding, the purpose he had found, and the person he was becoming. Someone who recognized that it's never too late to rise from the ashes of your mistakes and become the person you should have been all along. The journey wasn't over. There would be challenges ahead, moments of regret, days when the weight of his past choices would feel heavy. But as he drifted off to sleep, Maxwell felt something that had eluded him even at the height of his corporate success. The morning of Eliza and James's wedding dawned clear and bright, a perfect September day in New England. Maxwell adjusted his tie in the mirror of his apartment, a strange mix of emotions churning inside him. Today, his ex-wife would marry another man, a man who saw her value and cherished it in ways Maxwell had failed to do during their 18 years together. His phone buzzed with a text from Rose. "Dad, can you stop for coffee on your way? The caterers forgot and Mom needs caffeine ASAP." Maxwell smiled at the casual way his daughter now included him in family moments. A year ago, such a request would have been unthinkable. "On my way? The usual for everyone?" "Yes, and James takes his black." "Thanks, Dad." As Maxwell drove to the small country inn where the wedding would take place, he reflected on the journey of the past 18 months. From the moment he'd seen Eliza at that fateful charity gala, confident, purposeful, thriving without him, something had shifted inside him. The carefully constructed narrative of his life, that he'd left Eliza for Vanessa because it was the natural progression for a man of his stature, had begun to unravel. The truth, which therapy had helped him face, was far less flattering. He had left Eliza because her authenticity had made him uncomfortable. Her lack of pretension, her focus on family over status, her genuine compassion for others, these qualities had seemed like liabilities to a man obsessed with projecting the perfect image. Vanessa, with her polished exterior and strategic approach to relationships, had seemed the perfect partner for the Maxwell Morgan he had been trying to become. How wrong he had been. Maxwell pulled into the parking area of the charming country inn, balancing a tray of coffee cups as he made his way to the bridal suite. He knocked gently on the door. "Coffee delivery," he called. Lily opened the door, already dressed in her bridesmaid's gown of deep burgundy. "Dad? Thank God. Mom's about to have a meltdown." Inside, the suite was a whirlwind of activity. Hairstylists, makeup artists, and photographers moved about the space while Eliza sat at the vanity, looking simultaneously radiant and stressed. "Maxwell," she said, catching his eye in the mirror, "you're a lifesaver." He handed her the coffee with a small smile. "Happy to help." "Everything okay?" "Just the usual wedding day chaos," she said, taking a grateful sip. "The florist delivered pink roses instead of burgundy. The ring bearer has a stomach bug, and my mother's already crying." "So, going smoothly then," Maxwell joked, earning a genuine laugh from Eliza. "Exactly." She turned to face him, and Maxwell was struck by how beautiful she looked, not just physically, but with an inner radiance that came from genuine happiness. "Thank you for being here today. I know it can't be easy." "I'm honored to be included," he said sincerely. "James is a lucky man." A soft smile touched Eliza's lips. "I'm the lucky one. We both are." There was no bitterness in her words, no hidden barb meant to remind him of what he'd thrown away, just simple gratitude for the happiness she had found. "I should deliver the rest of these," Maxwell said, indicating the coffee tray. "James and the groomsmen are in the library." "Yes? And Maxwell?" Eliza called as he turned to leave. "I'm glad you found your way back to us. Not as my husband, but as the girl's father. As our friend." Friend. The word might once have seemed like a consolation prize, a diminishment of what they had been to each other. Now, it felt like a gift he hadn't deserved, but was determined to honor. In the library, James and his groomsmen were in various stages of preparation. James looked up as Maxwell entered, his expression warm. "Coffee. You're a saint, Morgan." Maxwell handed him a cup. "Apparently the caterers forgot, thought you might need reinforcements." "How's Eliza holding up?" James asked, genuine concern in his voice. "Remarkably well, considering the pink roses and the sick ring-bearer." James groaned. "The roses, too. We already had to replace the cake this morning." "Wedding day chaos seems to be the theme," Maxwell observed. "As long as we end up married by sunset, I'll consider it a success," James said with a smile that spoke volumes about his priorities. This was a man who cared more about the marriage than the wedding, something Maxwell had failed to appreciate during his own nuptials 18 years ago. As Maxwell turned to leave, James stopped him. "Maxwell, wait. There's something I've been meaning to say." Maxwell braced himself, unsure what was coming. "Thank you," James said simply, "for making space for this new chapter, for supporting Eliza and the girls through this transition. It can't have been easy." The genuine appreciation in the other man's voice caught Maxwell off guard. "I'm just trying to be the person I should have been all along," he said honestly. James nodded, understanding in his eyes. "Well, It matters. To all of us. As Maxwell left the library, he was struck by the strange turns life could take. 2 years ago, he would have considered James Westlake a business rival, then a romantic rival. Now, they were collaborators at the Phoenix Foundation and something approaching friends. The ceremony was held in the inn's garden, with autumn foliage providing a spectacular backdrop. Maxwell sat in the second row, beside Eliza's parents, who had welcomed him with surprising warmth. As the music began and the wedding party processed, Maxwell felt a swell of pride watching his daughters walk down the aisle, poised and beautiful. And then came Eliza, radiant in a simple ivory gown that suited her perfectly. As she passed Maxwell's row, their eyes met briefly. There was no regret in her gaze, no lingering attachment, just a gentle acknowledgement of their shared history and the new paths they had each found. James waited at the altar, his face transformed with joy as he watched Eliza approach. The love between them was palpable, genuine, in a way that made Maxwell's chest ache, not with jealousy, but with recognition of what real partnership looked like. As the couple exchanged vows, Maxwell found himself genuinely moved. They had written their own, and James's words in particular struck a chord. "Eliza, you came into my life when I had stopped believing in second chances," he said, his voice steady and sure. "You showed me that it's never too late to begin again, to rise from whatever has broken you and build something more beautiful than before." The phoenix metaphor wasn't lost on Maxwell. It had become the guiding principle of his own transformation over the past year and a half. At the reception, Maxwell found himself surprisingly comfortable. There were awkward moments, of course, explaining his presence to puzzled guests who knew him as the ex-husband, navigating conversations with Eliza's relatives who remembered him from their first wedding. But overall, the day flowed with a grace that seemed fitting for the occasion. After dinner, as the dancing began, Maxwell watched from the sidelines as James led Eliza onto the floor for their first dance. They moved together with the easy synchronicity of two people completely at ease with each other. "They're good together, aren't they?" Maxwell turned to find Rose beside him, a glass of champagne in her hand. "They are," he agreed. "Your mother deserves this happiness." Rose studied him with those perceptive eyes that reminded him so much of Eliza. "And what about you, Dad? What do you deserve?" The question caught him off guard. "I'm not sure that's the right way to think about it," he said after a moment. "It's not about what I deserve, but about becoming someone who deserves the good things in my life now, like having you and Lily back in my life, working with the foundation." Rose nodded, seemingly satisfied with his answer. "You know, when you first left Mom, I thought I'd never forgive you. I was so angry." "You had every right to be," Maxwell acknowledged. "Maybe. But holding on to that anger was exhausting." She took a sip of her champagne. "I like who you're becoming, Dad. It can't have been easy, facing yourself like that." "Hardest thing I've ever done," Maxwell admitted, "but also the most worthwhile." As the evening progressed, Maxwell found himself drawn into conversations, even onto the dance floor for father-daughter dances with both twins. During a quiet moment, he stepped outside onto the terrace for some fresh air. The autumn night was cool and clear, stars visible above the trees surrounding the inn. Maxwell breathed deeply, feeling a sense of peace that had once seemed unattainable. Needed a break from the festivities? He turned to find Eliza joining him on the terrace, a shawl wrapped around her shoulders against the evening chill. "Just taking a moment," he said. "It's been a beautiful wedding." "It has," she agreed, coming to stand beside him at the railing. "Thank you for being part of it. It means a lot to the girls, and to me." They stood in companionable silence for a moment, looking out at the gardens illuminated by strings of fairy lights. "I owe you an apology, Eliza," Maxwell said finally. "A real one, not just for leaving, but for how I treated you during our marriage, for taking you for granted, for making you feel less than." Eliza was quiet for a long moment. "Thank you for saying that," she said finally. "There was a time when I needed to hear those words desperately. And now?" A soft smile touched her lips. "Now I know my worth isn't dependent on your recognition of it. But I appreciate the apology all the same." Her words held no bitterness, just the calm assurance of a woman who had found her strength. "The Phoenix Foundation," Maxwell said, changing the subject. "It's growing beyond what either of us imagined." "It is," Eliza agreed, her expression brightening. "The new technology centers you've helped establish are making such a difference. We're reaching kids who would never have had these opportunities otherwise." "It's the most meaningful work I've ever done," Maxwell admitted. "Strange how it took losing everything I thought I wanted to find what I actually needed." Eliza studied him thoughtfully. "You know, when you first joined the Foundation's board, I wasn't sure if it was just another project for you, something to ease your conscience or rebuild your image." "It started that way," Maxwell acknowledged honestly. "The anonymous donation was partly guilt, partly wanting to support your vision without complicating your life. But then I saw what was happening at the Foundation, the real impact it was having, and something shifted." "I've noticed," Eliza said, "the way you work with the students, how you've mentored the tech team. You've found your purpose there." "I have," Maxwell agreed, "though I still have a lot to learn about putting others first." "Don't we all?" Eliza said with a small laugh. "It's a lifelong journey." From inside, they could hear the music changing, a slower song beginning. "I should get back," Eliza said. "My husband will be looking for me." The words held no malice, no intent to wound, just a simple statement of her new reality. "He's a good man," Maxwell said sincerely. "I'm glad you found each other." Eliza reached out and briefly squeezed his hand, a gesture of friendship, of forgiveness, of moving forward. "I'm glad you found yourself, Maxwell, the real you, beneath all those layers of ambition and image." As she turned to go, Maxwell felt a sense of closure wash over him, not the bitter end he had once feared, nor the reconciliation he had briefly, foolishly hoped for after his breakup with Vanessa, but something equally valuable: peace, acceptance, the chance to be part of each other's lives in a new way. Inside, he watched as Eliza rejoined James on the dance floor, the two of them moving together with the easy intimacy of a couple truly in love. There was a time when such a sight would have filled him with jealousy or regret. Now, he felt only a quiet gladness that Eliza had found the partnership she deserved. Later, as the reception wound down, Maxwell found himself saying goodbye to the twins who would be returning to Stanford the following week. "You'll come visit us in California soon?" Lily asked, hugging him tightly. "As soon as we get the new technology center up and running," Maxwell promised. "Maybe Thanksgiving." "Perfect," Rose said, joining the hug. "We can show you around campus, introduce you to our friends." The casual way they included him in their lives now still felt like a gift Maxwell wasn't sure he deserved but was determined to honor. As he drove back to his apartment that night, Maxwell reflected on the day. He had watched his ex-wife marry another man and felt genuine happiness for her. He had danced with his daughters and made plans for future visits. He'd conversed easily with James about their shared work at the Foundation. None of this would have seemed possible 2 years ago, when he had been so focused on projecting the perfect image that he had lost sight of what actually mattered. His phone buzzed with a text as he pulled into his parking space. It was from Eliza. "Thank you for today. Your presence meant the world to the girls and to us." Such a simple message, but it filled him with more satisfaction than any business success ever had. As Maxwell entered his apartment, modest by his former standards but comfortable and filled with photos of his daughters and mementos of his work with the Foundation, he felt a sense of contentment that had eluded him even at the height of his corporate success. The journey wasn't over. There would be challenges ahead, moments of regret, days when the weight of his past choices would feel heavy. But as he prepared for bed, Maxwell felt something that had once seemed unattainable: peace. For the first time in his life, Maxwell Morgan understood that true wealth had nothing to do with stock prices or penthouse views. Real wealth was in the relationships he was rebuilding, the purpose he had found, and the person he was becoming. Someone who recognized that it's never too late to rise from the ashes of your mistakes and build something more beautiful than before. Like the phoenix that had become the symbol of his transformation, Maxwell had emerged from the fire of his greatest failures, not unchanged, but renewed, stronger, wiser, and finally, authentically himself. 3 years after the wedding, Maxwell stood on the stage of the newly opened Phoenix Foundation Technology Center in San Francisco, addressing a room full of donors, educators, and students. As the executive director of the foundation's technology initiative, he had overseen the expansion to 3 new cities, with plans for 5 more in the coming year. "When I first joined the Phoenix Foundation," he began, "I thought I was the one offering something valuable, my business experience, my technical knowledge. What I didn't realize was how much more I would receive in return." His gaze found familiar faces in the crowd. Rose and Lily, now college graduates embarking on their own careers while remaining involved with the foundation. Eliza and James, who had flown in from Boston for the opening, their hands clasped together as they listened attentively. "The Phoenix Foundation taught me what true success looks like," Maxwell continued. "It's not measured in stock prices or acquisitions. It's measured in lives changed, in potential unlocked, in second chances embraced." As he described the programs the new center would offer, coding classes for underserved youth, technology training for single parents, digital arts education, Maxwell felt a sense of purpose that had eluded him throughout his corporate career. This wasn't about building his own empire or enhancing his personal brand. This was about creating opportunities for others, about using his skills and resources to make a genuine difference. After the presentation, as the crowd mingled during the reception, Maxwell found himself approached by a familiar face, Vanessa, elegant as ever in a designer suit. "Impressive speech," she said, offering her hand. "Congratulations on the expansion." "Vanessa?" Maxwell said, genuinely surprised. "I didn't know you were in San Francisco." "I relocated last year," she explained, "heading up West Coast operations for Pinnacle now." "Congratulations," Maxwell said sincerely. "That's a significant promotion." Vanessa studied him with curious eyes. "You look different. Happy?" "I am," Maxwell said simply. Even though Vanessa glanced meaningfully toward where Eliza stood with James, clearly still very much in love 3 years into their marriage. Maxwell followed her gaze, feeling a twinge of what might always be regret for what he had thrown away, but no longer the sharp pain of loss. "Eliza deserves happiness. I'm glad she's found it." Vanessa shook her head slightly. "The Maxwell Morgan I knew would never have said that." "The Maxwell Morgan you knew was chasing the wrong things," Maxwell said quietly. "It took losing everything that actually mattered to realize that." "And now? Are you dating anyone?" The question held a hint of their old connection, a testing of waters. Maxwell shook his head. "I'm focusing on the foundation, on my relationship with my daughters, on becoming someone I can be proud of." Vanessa considered this, then nodded. "Well, for what it's worth, I think you've succeeded. This," she gestured around at the center, "is impressive, meaningful in a way Pinnacle never was." Coming from Vanessa, who had always valued status and success above all, the compliment meant something. "Thank you," Maxwell said. "That means a lot." As Vanessa moved away to network with other attendees, Rose approached, linking her arm through her father's. "Was that Vanessa? What did she want?" "Just to say hello," Maxwell said. "She's heading Pinnacle's West Coast division now." Rose studied him carefully. "And how did that make you feel, seeing her again?" Maxwell considered the question. "Like looking at a different life, one that seems very far away now." Rose nodded, satisfied. "You know, when you first left Mom, I thought you were having a midlife crisis, trading up for a younger model, chasing some image of success." "That's exactly what I was doing," Maxwell admitted ruefully. "But it wasn't a crisis," Rose continued thoughtfully. "It was a catalyst for all of us. Mom found her purpose with the foundation, then found James. Lily and I discovered our own paths, and you." "I found my way back to what matters," Maxwell finished. "The hard way, unfortunately." "Sometimes that's the only way that sticks," Rose said with wisdom beyond her years. Later, as the event wound down, Maxwell found himself standing with Eliza and James near the Student Technology Showcase. "The coding program is remarkable," James said, genuine admiration in his voice. "These kids are creating applications I wouldn't have thought possible at their age. They just needed the opportunity," Maxwell said, "the tools and the belief that they could do it." That's always been the Foundation's mission, Eliza said, her expression warm with pride, providing the spark, then watching people ignite. The three of them stood together comfortably, their initial awkwardness long since transformed into a genuine friendship and professional respect. Maxwell marveled at how life could change, how relationships could evolve in ways he never would have imagined. "We're thinking of expanding the Boston headquarters," Eliza said, "adding a dedicated technology wing. We'd like your input on the design if you're willing." "Of course," Maxwell agreed readily. "I'll be back east next month for Lily's birthday anyway." "Perfect," James said. "We can review the plans then. Maybe dinner at our place with the girls." "I'd like that," Maxwell said, meaning it. As they parted ways for the evening, Eliza hugged him briefly, a gesture that had once been unthinkable but now felt natural. "I'm proud of what you've built here, Maxwell," she said. "It's making a real difference." "We built it," Maxwell corrected. "Your vision, my implementation, a good partnership." Eliza smiled at that. "Yes, I suppose it is." Back in his San Francisco apartment, a comfortable space with views of the bay, far less ostentatious than his former penthouse but more reflective of who he had become, Maxwell reflected on the day's events. Seeing Vanessa had been unexpected, a collision of his past and present selves. There had been a time when her approval, her presence in his life, had seemed essential to his identity as a successful man. Now, he recognized their relationship for what it had been. Two people using each other to project a certain image, to achieve a certain status. What he had now was so different. Meaningful work that made a tangible difference in young lives. A genuine relationship with his daughters, who had grown into remarkable women he was proud to know. A friendship with Eliza and James based on mutual respect and shared purpose. And, perhaps most importantly, a relationship with himself that was no longer based on external validation or achievement, but on living according to values he truly believed in. Maxwell's phone buzzed with a text from Lily. "Great speech today, Dad. One of my former students just got accepted to MIT's computer science program because of your mentorship. You're changing lives." Such a simple message, but it filled him with more satisfaction than any quarterly earnings report ever had. For the first time in his life, Maxwell Morgan understood that true wealth had nothing to do with stock prices or penthouse views. Real wealth was in the relationships he had rebuilt, the purpose he had found, and the person he had become, someone who recognized that it's never too late to rise from the ashes of your mistakes and build something more beautiful than before. Like the phoenix that had become the symbol of his transformation, Maxwell had emerged from the fire of his greatest failures, not unchanged but renewed, stronger, wiser, and finally, authentically himself. The journey wasn't over. There would always be new challenges, new opportunities for growth, new ways to make a difference. But as Maxwell prepared for bed that night, he felt something that had once seemed unattainable. Contentment. Not the restless ambition that had driven him for decades, always reaching for more, never satisfied with what he had achieved, but a quiet certainty that he was exactly where he was meant to be, doing exactly what he was meant to do. Maxwell Morgan, once defined by his wealth and status, had discovered a different kind of richness, one measured not in dollars but in purpose, connection, and authentic living. And that, he now understood, was the greatest success of all. 5 years to the day after Maxwell had watched his ex-wife marry James Westlake, he stood in the garden of their Boston home, surrounded by family and friends, celebrating the Phoenix Foundation's anniversary. The organization had grown beyond anyone's expectations, with centers in 12 cities across the country and international partnerships developing. "Uncle Max!" a small voice called out, and Maxwell turned to find James and Eliza's 3-year-old son, Thomas, running toward him with arms outstretched. Maxwell scooped the boy up, a surge of affection warming his chest. "Hey, buddy, what have you been up to?" "Building robots with Rose," Thomas announced proudly. "She says I'm a natural engineer." "Well, if Rose says so, it must be true," Maxwell agreed seriously. "She's the expert, after all." Rose, who had followed her half-brother across the lawn, smiled at the exchange. At 25, she had already established herself as a rising star in educational technology, developing programs that combined arts and coding in innovative ways. He's definitely got the Morgan analytical mind, she observed, ruffling Thomas's hair affectionately. But thankfully, he has his father's patience. Maxwell laughed, acknowledging the gentle tease. A winning combination. When Eliza had announced her pregnancy 2 years after her wedding to James, Maxwell had been surprised by his reaction, genuine happiness, untinged by jealousy or regret. Thomas's birth had further cemented the unusual family they had become, with Maxwell taking on the role of honorary uncle to the boy who, in another life, might have been his son. "There you are," Lily joined them, elegant in a summer dress, her engagement ring catching the sunlight. "Mom's looking for you, Dad. Something about the new scholarship program." Maxwell set Thomas down, watching as the boy ran back to the activity table where other children were playing. "I'll find her. How are the wedding plans coming along?" Lily's expression softened at the mention of her upcoming marriage to Michael, a dedicated teacher she had met through the foundation. "Good. We've finally settled on a venue. Small ceremony, just family and close friends." "Perfect," Maxwell approved. "And Michael's parents are flying in next week?" "Yes, you'll meet them at dinner on Thursday." Lily hesitated, then added, "It means a lot that you and Mom and James all get along so well. Makes everything easier." Maxwell squeezed her shoulder gently. "We all want the same thing, your happiness." As Lily moved away to greet arriving guests, Maxwell made his way through the garden toward the house. The property was filled with people connected to the Phoenix Foundation, staff, students, donors, community partners. What had begun as Eliza's vision for healing and transformation had grown into a movement that touched thousands of lives. Inside, he found Eliza in the kitchen, organizing a tray of refreshments with her characteristic efficiency. "Lily said you were looking for me?" Maxwell asked. Eliza looked up with a smile. "Yes, the Westlake Morgan Scholarship Committee needs your input on the technology requirements for applicants. James is in his study with the paperwork." The Westlake Morgan Scholarship, named for both families, had been established the previous year to support promising students from underserved communities pursuing careers in arts-integrated technology. It was one of many collaborative projects that had emerged from their unusual family configuration. "I'll head there now," Maxwell said, then hesitated. "Need any help here first?" Eliza shook her head, a hint of amusement in her eyes. "I've got it under control. Some things never change." There was no bitterness in her words, just the comfortable acknowledgement of their shared history and how far they had come. In James's study, Maxwell found his former rival, now friend and collaborator, reviewing applications with intense focus. "Ah, Maxwell," James looked up with a welcoming smile. "Perfect timing. We've narrowed it down to these 5 candidates, but I'd value your perspective on their technical qualifications." As they worked together, discussing the merits of each applicant, Maxwell was struck by the easy partnership they had developed. What might have been an awkward, tension-filled relationship had instead become one of mutual respect and genuine friendship. "By the way," James said as they finished their task, "I wanted to run something by you. I've been approached about a position on the National Education Policy Board. It would mean more travel, more time away from home." "You're concerned about Eliza and Thomas?" Maxwell guessed. James nodded. "The foundation is expanding. Thomas is at a crucial developmental stage, and with Eliza considering writing that book about the Phoenix methodology, you're wondering if it's the right time to take on something new," Maxwell finished. "Exactly." James leaned back in his chair. 5 years ago, I wouldn't have hesitated. Career advancement was always the priority, but now there are other considerations," Maxwell said, understanding completely. "Other people whose lives are intertwined with yours." "Yes." James studied him thoughtfully. "You know, I've always admired how you restructured your entire life to prioritize what truly matters. It couldn't have been easy, stepping away from pinnacle at the height of your career." The compliment caught Maxwell off guard. "It was the best decision I ever made," he said honestly, "though I wish I'd made it sooner, before hurting so many people in the process." James nodded, understanding in his eyes. "We all have regrets. The question is what we do with them." "Transform them," Maxwell said, echoing the Phoenix Foundation's core philosophy. "Use them as catalysts for growth." "Exactly." James gathered the scholarship applications into a neat pile. So, about this policy board position. Take it, Maxwell said decisively. It's important work, and you have the expertise they need. As for Eliza and Thomas, they have a strong support system. The girls, me, the foundation staff. We'll all help ensure they have what they need while you're traveling. James looked surprised, then grateful. Thank you, Maxwell. That means a lot. As they rejoined the party outside, Maxwell found himself drawn into conversations with students, donors, and community partners. The work of the Phoenix Foundation had become his life's purpose, far more fulfilling than his years building pinnacle innovations. Later, as the celebration continued into the evening, Maxwell found a quiet moment alone on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant hues of orange and gold. "Penny for your thoughts," Eliza's voice came from behind him. Maxwell turned with a smile as she joined him, leaning against the railing. "Just reflecting on how much has changed, how unlikely this all would have seemed 5 years ago." Eliza nodded, understanding in her eyes. "Life takes unexpected turns." "Indeed it does." Maxwell gestured toward the garden, where their extended family and friends mingled. "I never imagined we'd create this kind of unconventional family. That Thomas would call me Uncle Max, that James and I would become friends. That I would find purpose beyond being Mrs. Maxwell Morgan," Eliza added with a gentle teasing smile. "Especially that," Maxwell acknowledged. "You've built something remarkable, Eliza. The foundation, this family, all of it." "We built it," Eliza corrected, echoing his words from years before. "All of us together, even our mistakes contributed to what we have now." They stood in companionable silence for a moment, watching as Rose organized an impromptu dance party on the lawn, Thomas twirling in delighted circles while Lily and her fiancé laughed nearby. "Are you happy, Maxwell?" Eliza asked suddenly. "Truly happy?" The question deserved careful consideration. "Yes," he said finally. "Not in the way I once thought happiness would look. It's quieter, deeper. Less about achievement and more about connection." Eliza nodded, satisfaction in her expression. "That's what I hoped for you, what I hope for all of us." "And you?" Maxwell asked. "Are you happy?" "Deeply," Eliza said without hesitation. "I have work that matters, a partner who sees me, children who inspire me daily. And," she added with a meaningful look, "I've made peace with the past." The simple statement held volumes. Forgiveness, acceptance, closure. "I'm glad," Maxwell said sincerely. "You deserve every happiness, Eliza." James appeared in the doorway, Thomas sleepily perched on his hip. "Someone is ready for bed but insists on saying goodnight to Uncle Max first." Maxwell's heart swelled as the drowsy boy reached for him. "Good night, buddy. Dream about robots, okay?" "And phoenixes," Thomas mumbled, already half asleep. "The birds that come back from fire." "Yes," Maxwell agreed, handing the child back to his father. "Exactly like that." As James carried Thomas inside, Eliza lingered a moment longer. "You know, when you first left, I thought my life was over, that I'd lost everything that mattered." "I'm so sorry," Maxwell began, but Eliza shook her head. "That's not my point. My point is that sometimes what feels like an ending is actually a beginning. Sometimes we have to lose what we thought we wanted to find what we truly need." The wisdom in her words resonated deeply. "The phoenix rising from the ashes," Maxwell said softly. "Exactly." Eliza squeezed his hand briefly. "I should help James with bedtime. Stay as long as you like." As she went inside, Maxwell remained on the porch, contemplating the journey that had brought him to this moment. From ambitious young entrepreneur to ruthless CEO. From husband to ex-husband. From absent father to present one. From a man defined by his wealth and status to one defined by his purpose and relationships. It had not been an easy transformation. There had been painful reckonings, difficult conversations, moments of doubt. But standing here now, watching the family he had helped create in its new, unconventional form, Maxwell felt a profound sense of rightness. This was where he belonged. Not at the head of a corporate empire, not in a sterile penthouse with a partner chosen for image rather than connection. But here, in this messy, beautiful, authentic life, he had rebuilt from the ashes of his greatest mistakes. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Maxwell made his way back to the garden to join the celebration. Rose immediately pulled him into the dance circle, and Lily introduced him to her fiancé's parents with evident pride. "This is my dad," she said simply. "He runs our technology programs." No mention of his former corporate status, his wealth, his achievements in the business world. Just this, his role in the foundation, his place in her life. And it was enough, more than enough. For the first time in his life, Maxwell Morgan understood that true wealth had nothing to do with stock prices or penthouse views. Real wealth was in the relationships he had rebuilt, the purpose he had found, and the person he had become, someone who recognized that it's never too late to rise from the ashes of your mistakes and build something more beautiful than before. Like the phoenix that had become the symbol of his transformation, Maxwell had emerged from the fire of his greatest failures, not unchanged but renewed, stronger, wiser, and finally, authentically himself. The journey wasn't over. There would always be new challenges, new opportunities for growth, new ways to make a difference. But as Maxwell joined hands with his daughters in the dance circle, laughing under the stars, he felt something that had once seemed unattainable. Joy, not the fleeting satisfaction of closing a deal or acquiring a company, not the hollow pride of being the richest man in the room, but deep, abiding joy, the kind that comes from living with purpose, loving without conditions, and finally, becoming the person you were always meant to be. Maxwell Morgan, once defined by his wealth and status, had discovered a different kind of richness, one measured not in dollars but in purpose, connection, and authentic living. And that, he now understood with perfect clarity, was the greatest success of all.